Welcome back to the deep dive. Now, usually we're digging into, economic reports, maybe some geopolitical shifts.
Right, the heavy stuff.
But today, we're doing something, well, a little different. We are taking a deep psychological dive into the summary of a classic short story, A Letter to God.
And it's a great choice because while the plot is simple, it's about a farmer writing to God after disaster. The story itself is just one of the most concentrated looks at irony and human psychology you'll ever find.
Absolutely. So our mission for you today is not just to, summarize the story.
Yeah.
We want to get to the core emotional current running through it and really pull out the profound and often painful psychological twists.
It's all about what this story says about faith in the divine versus, well, trust in other people.
That distinction is everything here. And to start, we have to meet our protagonist, Lencha.
Lencho. He's a poor, hardworking farmer. His life is completely tied to the land, to the seasons.
His whole identity, his family's survival, it all comes down to the harvest.
He's a man who believes in honest work.
And crucially, he believes in a kind of cosmic order. If he does his part, he expects the universe and God to do theirs.
Which is exactly why the catastrophe that hits him is so devastating.
Talk about that.
The sources all detail this sudden, really violent hailstorm. It's not just rain, it's ice.
Right.
And it just turns this promising harvest into total ruin. The fields are completely wiped out. He and his family are left facing actual starvation.
So it's a complete loss. In that moment of utter devastation where most people would, I think, just despair or get angry, Lencha's character reveals something really fascinating. He doesn't despair, he looks up.
Exactly. The text highlights that even though he was taken aback and felt sad, the thing that really sustained him was this unshakable, strong faith in God.
And it's not a passive thing, is it? It's not just comfort.
No, not at all. It's an active, almost pragmatic certainty.
Yeah.
He genuinely believes there's one resource left that cannot possibly fail him.
And that certainty launches us right into the incredible premise of this whole story. He doesn't just, pray in the abstract.
No, he treats God like a business partner he can rely on. He decides to write a formal letter.
It's an amazing pivot from the spiritual to the administrative.
It really is. And the plea is immediate and incredibly specific. He needs exactly 100 pesos.
100 pesos, not some money, but a hard number.
Right. It's the amount he's calculated he needs to resow his fields and feed his family until the next harvest. It's a request for capital.
And the delivery system is just as audacious. He writes the letter, addresses it simply to God, puts a stamp on it.
And drops it right into the post office mailbox.
It's maybe the ultimate act of unwavering confidence. He fully expects a reply.
And this is where the story pivots again. It goes from a tale about one man's faith to a study of human reaction to that faith.
So imagine being the postman who pulls that letter out of the box.
Oh, yeah. He sees the address and he just bursts out laughing. I mean, it's absurd. He immediately runs to show the postmaster.
And the postmaster is such a critical figure here. He also laughs because, how could you not?
Of course.
But the laughter, it just lasts a second. And this is where it gets really interesting. The postmaster is just deeply moved. He's struck by the sheer conviction of this farmer.
He sees past the absurdity of the address and right into the depth of the man's belief.
So his motivation isn't just simple charity.
No, it's almost metaphysical. He decides he must respond to this letter. He has to provide the money, specifically so that this man's incredible faith in God is not shaken.
He decides to impersonate the divine, basically, to protect a man's belief system.
It's a staggering choice. He's telling this enormous white lie, all to reinforce a stranger's spiritual certainty.
And he's all in on it. He starts a collection drive right there in the post office.
Yes, he asks every employee to contribute as an act of charity, and he even gives a part of his own salary.
It becomes this communal effort, all driven by this one man's selfless compassion.
They're pooling human resources to answer a divine request. But this brings us to the crucial detail. The detail that becomes the hinge of the entire tragedy.
The unavoidable problem.
Right. Despite all their efforts, their personal sacrifice, the money they collected was a little less than the 100 pesos Lencho had asked for.
That shortfall is so critical. How much did they get?
They could only gather 70 pesos. So now the postmaster has this choice. Admit it was a human effort and risk shaking Lencho's faith, or
maintain the illusion, but with a 30% deficit.
And he chooses the illusion. He bundles the 70 pesos into an envelope, addresses it back to Lencho, and he signs it simply, God.
Let's just pause on that. He signs it God. He commits completely to the deception, believing that 70 pesos will be enough. He thinks he's done this immense good anonymously.
He has, and this leads us to the following Sunday. Lencho, reflecting that absolute faith, is already back at the post office. He isn't hoping for a reply,
He's expecting one.
confidently expecting one. The postmaster just quietly hands him the envelope.
Now, you'd think Lencho would be overwhelmed with relief, maybe tearfully grateful.
But no. The sources are clear on this. Lencho was not surprised at all to see the money inside.
Because for him, God's response was a certainty, a transaction completed.
That lack of surprise tells you everything about his mindset. His faith is so absolute, it sort of negates the concept of a miracle. It was just payment due.
But then he counts the money.
And that absolute certainty it morphs into something else entirely. Pure fury.
He's instantly angry because there are only 70 pesos. He wasn't grateful for the 70.
No, he was outraged by the missing 30.
And you have to ask, why does suspicion just instantly crush any sense of gratitude? Why does he default to theft, not, say, a smaller gift or even human intervention?
I think it speaks to the nature of his very transactional faith. The deal was for 100 pesos. A gap isn't charity, it's a broken contract.
And since God is perfect and can't fail,
The only logical explanation for the deficit must be human corruption. His total faith in God basically demands total suspicion of humanity to make sense of the imperfect world.
what a devastating line of reasoning. And his response is immediate.
Oh, explosive. He grabs a pen and paper and instantly writes a second letter to God, seals it, and drops it in the letterbox before storming off.
Mm.
He has a formal complaint to register.
And the postmaster, of course, is probably watching all this, thinking his good deed is done.
Exactly. He's probably expecting a thank you note.
Huh.
So he reads the letter right after Lencho leaves. And what he finds is, well, it's an absolute shock.
The contents are just crushing.
Utterly. Lencho complains to God that he only got 70 pesos instead of the full 100. He feels robbed, and he thinks he knows exactly who did it.
This is where the blame is just catastrophically misdirected.
He doesn't even pause to consider any other possibility. He just criticizes the post office employees, confidently asserting that they must have stolen the remaining 30 pesos.
And the final request in that second letter, it's just the absolute peak of the story's irony. He urges God to send him the rest of the money, the missing 30 pesos. But then he explicitly asks God not to send it through the mail.
And why? Because Lencho believed, with that same unshakable conviction, that the post office employees were a bunch of crooks.
Just imagine the postmaster's face reading that line.
Right.
He went from being this selfless agent of faith preservation to being labeled the ringleader of a gang of thieves. His noble act resulted in the deepest, most undeserved insult.
And that's the synthesis of the irony right there. The people who were moved by his faith, who sacrificed their own money to help him,
Are the very people he now accuses of theft.
the faith that they worked so hard to protect is the very thing that generated a suspicion so powerful it instantly indicted them.
It's a perfect ethical car crash. The postmaster succeeded in preserving Lencho's belief in God's reliability.
But in doing so, he accidentally destroyed any trust Lencho might have had in his fellow human beings.
Even though those human beings were the actual source of the so-called miracle.
It just forces you to look at this duality of belief. Lencho had zero doubt in the divine, the invisible, but he had instant, unshakable suspicion of the visible, tangible human beings right in front of him.
So he went from devastation to this total transactional conviction and landed in a place of complete misdirected blame. It really shows how often we just look for the most convenient human villain to explain a shortfall.
Exactly. The postmaster's 70 pesos, intended as a reassurance of cosmic benevolence, only confirmed Lencho's deep-seated cynicism toward his fellow man.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, reflecting on what this story really teaches us.
If Lencho's faith was so powerful that receiving money from God didn't even surprise him, it was just expected, what does it say about human nature that he found it easier to believe in divine intervention than to accept the possibility of selfless kindness from his neighbors?
It's a powerful question.
It is. Is genuine, anonymous generosity so rare now that it's become psychologically harder for us to process than the concept of a miracle? We encourage you to think about whether sometimes the greatest obstacle to belief isn't doubt in the divine, but really a deep suspicion of the person standing right next to you. And that's something that resonates far beyond this story.